I'm nervous. Hello. Hi, guys. Okay. I think I'm live right now. Oh, am I? Yep. Okay. I'm just gonna keep talking. I think I'm live. I think this is working. Um, okay, so my name's Ashley, and I wanted to start previewing the 49ers Cardinals game and just kind of test out, make sure you guys can hear me. Let me see in the comments if anyone can hear me. Hopefully. Let me know if you guys can hear me in the comments. I quite literally think only my best friend is watching right now, which would be fine. Okay, good. Okay, so I wanted to start this live by, let me see this, injury updating, you guys. I wanted to originally come on at 3, but then I saw that all the injury updates from Friday's practice were coming out and figured I might as well start a little bit later. So right now, Ayuk said he looks, or Kyle said Ayuk looks good. He was out on the field practicing, so I definitely think he'll be out. I kind of assumed this. From what I gathered, it seemed like he was going to be, he would have played if the game was on Sunday last week. Everyone said it was just a pain tolerance issue, not necessarily something that could like get abrogated. Never mind, I can't speak. Not something that would get aggravated. There we go. Words are great. And hurt more down the line. So I definitely think Ayuk is all good to go. And that's really good because Jawan Jennings is doubtful and Debo was questionable. And I kind of think I'm going to make the case for why I think they should hold Debo out this game, even though he might play. I saw in an interview he said he seemed pretty good to go. And I know that he was in the workout room yesterday and working on the side field today. So it's definitely possible for him to go. But I would hold him out just like they held Ayuk out because if it's a rib injury, I feel like you might as well. We'd rather have him for the Cowboys. I think coaches, when they go into games, they're not thinking like this is an easy game. They go 100% every game, especially the 49ers right now, wanting to get that number 1 seed. So I can see them trying to push Debo to go, but I think that they should let him rest. And a big um, reason for that is because I think they can have Ronnie Bell and Ray Ray McLeod step up. Last year when Debo was out, Ray Ray did a lot of those jet sweeps and end arounds, and he did them just as good as Debo. Obviously, Debo's in much better shape this year and performing really well. But I think going against the Cardinals defense, that we don't really need Debo. We want to focus more on the run game. And what I can do is tell you about some players that are underused that I think could make an impact. So I think they should hold Debo out, but then utilize Kittle more. In the last 3 games against the Cardinals, Kittle has scored 5 touchdowns. So he goes off against the Cardinals, which kind of makes sense because I feel like in big games or divisional games is usually when Kittle kind of shines. Um, Especially at this stage in his career, I feel like that's when he kind of comes out to perform. I think sometimes he can kind of conserve himself. And I know to start the season he was injured, but he slowly looked better and better. He got more targets last game. I wish he would have gotten even more, especially now that going against the Cardinals, their front 4 aren't that strong. So I don't think we'll need as much help from him blocking. So I could see them sending him out on more routes and getting Kittle more involved in the offense. And if they did that, then they could definitely let Debo take some time off. Also, Ronnie Bell scored his first touchdown, so I feel like he can get in there. Ronnie Bell can get some targets. Ayuk will be back. Ray Ray McLeod can fill in for that Debo role and get Kittle more involved. I mean, those are so many. Kittle is a Pro Bowler, and Ayuk is basically going to be a Pro Bowler this year. So I feel like they shouldn't push Debo if they don't need to. I definitely can see him pushing himself, but maybe even if they do activate him, don't utilize him as much. Definitely get the ball more in the hands of Ayuk and Kittle. Have Ray Ray take some targets. Get Bell more involved. I think that would be really smart. Also, let's throw the ball to Juszczyk. Juszczyk is on the team. Why did we pay him so much money? And he's so good, but never ever gets any targets. I just feel like this could be a game that we can utilize some players that aren't always utilized because the team is so good and we have so many good players that they're not. If Kittle was on a different team, he'd be getting all the targets. If Ayuk was on the Cowboys, he'd be like CeeDee Lamb. So I just think that we can get more targets to these other guys. Wait, and have Debo rest a little bit, make sure he's healthy against the Cowboys, because I think that that's more important. I don't think he's super necessary to beat the Cardinals because the Cardinals, although so much better than I expected, they do like their talent is so much worse than ours. You know what I mean? We could hold multiple wide receivers out and still out talent them. So I don't think we should be pushing anyone, but because it's Debo and because he's tough, it might happen. Although I thought that with Ayuk, I was like certain that Ayuk was going to press to play, and then they held him out. I know it was a Thursday night, but I'm still feeling like they could hold Debo out. Um, Going back to the injury updates because I did this wrong. It's okay. This is a practice one. Back to the injury updates. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles and Drake Greenlaw were both questionable. I think I want Dre Greenlaw to play. I have controversial opinions about Dre Greenlaw. I feel like people don't like him because of his one penalty every single game, and I can see if that comes in the wrong situation, that being extremely frustrating. But you want to have. I mean, Fred Warner is the best linebacker in football right now. He's so amazing. He's so good at coverage. I saw that video clip of Bosa showing him some pass rushing moves. So I wonder if Wilkes is going to be blitzing him more today. So Fred Warner is amazing. And he's definitely nasty and has his own kind of like grit to him. But I mean, Dre Greenlaw has like anger issues. And although that's scary in real life, as fans of the 49ers, I feel like that is super something that we should value. And I think he's such an old school player that he just kind of wants to take it to the line. And the penalty that he got last week, even Kyle said after that he thought that it was before the whistle, so it shouldn't have even been a penalty. Now, I think that refs are just looking out for Greenlaw because he does make so many hard hits and late hits that I think if anything is kind of iffy for him, that he's going to get like he's not someone that's going to get grace. I talked about Trent Williams getting grace last game, and that's because he has a good reputation among his peers and the referees. I think Drake Greenlaw has a bit of the opposite. I think if he tests the boundary, they're like, we're just gonna give you a penalty because we want to make sure you're not doing it. But I'm gonna be sad if he doesn't play. But I think he'll play because much like Debo, I'm talking about these players that kind of are rough and they don't want to. If they can go, they'll go. I feel like Drake Greenlaw will definitely go if he can. He always last season had that problem too, where midweek he would be questionable, and he always ended up playing. Now, if they don't play him, I still think they'll be okay. But I do think it would be. I do think it could be important for him to play because I think Arizona's only. Hold on, look at this. Arizona's only shot to win is I mean, I don't think they have any shot to win, but I think if they had a shot to win, it would be through their running game and through Josh Dobbs also getting a lot of rushing yards. So I think that Drake Greenlaw will play because I think our linebackers will be super necessary for containing Josh Dobbs and James Conner. I don't think that will happen. I know last week against the Cowboys, Josh Dobbs made a 40-yard run. I think that what Steve Wilkes will do is probably rush the front four, try to keep Dobbs from, getting out of the pocket as much as possible. He might break a couple in the beginning, shorter runs, just because the Niners have struggled with mobile quarterbacks. Although they did really contain Daniel Jones, but didn't Daniel Jones just suck last week? Like, I don't know. Was that the Niners are really good, or was that Daniel Jones is really bad and the New York Giants are so stupid? Why did they give him all the money? Like, oh my gosh. We've had quarterback problems here in San Francisco, but nothing compared to that. Can you imagine paying Daniel Jones $40 million? Did you see there was an interview where a reporter asked him about Mike Silver's article and was like, basically, this team said, you suck. Do you have a response to that? And he was just like, not really. No, I don't. So good thing we didn't pay him. I mean, we wouldn't pay a guy like him. My point was, I think that Josh Dobbs could run faster than Daniel Jones, and that might not necessarily be a good indication for how he'll do. Also, my thought was that we were able to contain Daniel Jones more because Saquon Barkley was out. So you're not worried about Saquon Barkley. Where in this game, you're going to be worried about James Conner. So I feel like if the defense accidentally is kind of too focused on making sure James Conner doesn't get out, then potentially they could forget about Josh Dobbs for a second and he could get some. Now, their wide receiving core is so terrible that I can barely name anyone on their wide receiving core. So I'm still not scared of them at all and don't think that they'll win at all. But I could see in the beginning half, because they've averaged 18 points in the beginning half of all their games, every game, which is actually really good. That's more, 2 touchdowns. So that's really good. The problem is at the later half of their games after the second half, counting all 3 games, they've only scored 18 points. So they really nosedive after the second quarter, which is great because the Niners go up after the second quarter. So I feel like this game, if it's not just an all out, like we're beating you from the first quarter on, then it's definitely going to be from after halftime. It's over. I could see it being competitive. And then the Arizona Cardinals, their talent is just so minuscule compared to the Niners that I could see that nosediving pretty quickly. But yeah, so I think that the only way that the Cardinals have a chance to win is if Brock Purdy throws a lot of interceptions. He did have some inaccuracy issues last week. So if those continue, maybe it is an elbow issue. I kind of hypothesized that maybe he was used to resting his elbow midweek, and that's why it looked a little bit worse last week. But now he's had a full week of rest. It's a normal Sunday game. I don't think he'll be too much worse, but he has made a lot of turnover-worthy throws, although he's had excellent luck and not turned the ball over at all. So I think the only way that they could win is if that turnover luck evens out or whatever, and Purdy gives the ball away. I want to say more than once. I think that he could throw a turnover and the Niners would still win pretty handedly, probably even cover that spread. 14 points, right? 13 points. I'll check. 13 or 14 points. But please rest him. See, yeah, I agree that we should rest Debo. But anyways, I can totally lost my train of thought. I should not check those, the comments. But what was I saying? Arizona. Oh, Purdy. I think that he could turn the ball over at least once and that the Niners would still cover the 14-point spread. And I think he would have to turn it over 2 to 3 times. The defense would have to crumble, let Josh Dobbs get multiple yards and somehow have James Conner go off. I mean, I can see if that offensive line really struggles, they're able to hit Purdy, spook him a little bit, him turning the ball over. But I can see it being a close game. I can't really envision them completely winning. But I can see them covering the spread depending on Purdy turning it over. That offensive line, McKivitz has looked really bad. Burford and Banks made some good plays, but they've really struggled. That right side has really, really struggled. So I could see it being closer than thought, but if I was going to bet, I think they're going to cover it. I don't think it'll be close at all, but there is a possibility. So we don't want to we want to make it interesting. We want to think that they have a chance and it's not just going to be a blowout. I don't know about you. I feel like I'm not a normal fan. I like close games. I think they're more entertaining and more fun. Obviously, it feels good when your team is just blowing everyone out, but I think it gives you something more to talk about and analyze if they're having a close game. So that's possible, but I don't anticipate it. I anticipate it being a blowout, but those are the ways that it would happen if it would. Also, I think, let me do this again. I love doing these little things. Did you see how smooth and seamless that was? I got to come up with better little things at the bottom. But so extra motivation to win, is it personal? So this is another reason why I think Devo will try to play is after the NFC Championship game last year, and Jonathan Gannon is now the coach of the Cardinals. He was the defensive coordinator against Philadelphia. Devo came out and said Kyle had found weaknesses within the secondary of that Philly defense, and that Debo and Ayuk were going to exploit them, and that if it wasn't for the quarterback getting injured, that they would have been able to expose the Philadelphia defense. Now, obviously, they've kind of walked back those making comments that are that extreme, because they kept getting a lot of shit for it this offseason, which I understand, because okay, you might have been able to exploit the secondary, but you weren't able to keep your quarterback healthy. I know that that's bad luck, but also that's a part of the game. You have to be able to keep your quarterback injured. So I understand why they don't say that anymore, but I do think that Debo will have some extra motivation to go against the Gannon scheme defense. And I'm excited to see Kyle and what he was preparing to show us against Philadelphia against this team. Now, I don't think it'll be as exciting because Philadelphia had such better players that it would have been like such an extreme matchup. And the way that our offense being so good against their defense, which had so many talented players. I think that's going to be a big discrepancy, where obviously the Cardinals don't have as good of players, but I still think that Kyle will want to show, hey, I wasn't BSing. I did have a good plan against this secondary, and I'm going to show you that I think Gannon is a fraud. And I think Debo also wants to do that. So if they don't hold him back, I could see him wanting to play just for that, because of the Philly kind of motivation. Also, Steve Wilks is going to be motivated to go against them. He's currently suing the Cardinals because of all that was going on with Steve Keim, and they give him like burner phones to talk to Steve Keim and everything when they weren't supposed to. So I think Kyle has motivation to show everyone, hey, last year when I said that I was going to scheme against this defense and I was going to do amazing, I will. And I think Steve Wilks has the same thing in his bag where he's like, you guys screwed me over. I was put in a terrible position, and I'm going to show you what I can do with a good defense in a stable organization. So I think both of those reasons are reasons that the Niners have even extra motivation. And I don't even think they need the extra motivation because they're just such a better team. But if they were just for some reason woke up lacking that day, they're definitely going to have motivation to win. Moral of the story is, even though potentially James Conner could get some yards and Josh Jacobs could run a little bit, I don't see a shot that the Niners lose. And I would bet that they cover the spread. Not a bettor, not a gambler, but I think they'll do it. I think what will happen is people that bet that in the first half, they'll be like sweating because it'll be like, oh, this is going to be a close game. They're not going to make it. And then they're just going to run away with it, which is what they've done the last two games against the Giants. Weren't the Giants winning for a second? And then they blew them out. And then against the Rams, same thing. It was like super tight. And everyone's like, the Rams suck right now. What are you doing? I mean, the Rams are more feisty, but they're not very good. And divisional games could just be tough. So I think if you bet that they'll cover the 14-point spread, that you'll be sweating in the first half, and then by the second half you'll feel like you'll be like, okay, I did right. We have way more talent and we have all the motivation in the world, even if Debo is sitting out. I'm really excited. If there's I don't bet, but if there's any bets for George Kittle to go off, like I said, he's scored 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games that he's played against them, and he didn't even have that many yards. He's just scoring touchdowns against them. So that will be nice. Next we will talk about what will we talk about? Good offseason moves and the vibe in the locker room. So I was talking earlier with Eric Crocker on his morning show, and I had trouble articulating this, but I think that the vibes this season make me feel like they're gonna go to the Super Bowl and maybe win it, right? Doesn't the team as a whole feel so much more like in unison? They have one vision. They're not getting asked about should this quarterback start? Should this quarterback start? They all seem very together. They seem kind of angry, almost like, we want to prove you wrong. We hear the noise that we're the team that keeps almost getting there and not making the jump, and we're going to show you now that we're going to make the leap. So I've noticed that. The Niners put out like of some of the game footage from last game, and Hargrave was saying like in previous teams that he's been in, he's had a lot of trouble connecting with people, and that it's taken him a while to get close. And he was like, I love you guys. Like I feel like right away I connected with you guys. And I just get that vibe. I feel like the offense is together. Kyle Shanahan is so behind Brock Purdy, which is I feel like I've mentioned that a bunch, but it's so shocking if you meet someone and they like have always. I feel like Kyle has always like Loki just hated his quarterbacks. So it'd be like me. I'm a big chocolate ice cream lover, and I don't like vanilla. It'd be like all of a sudden I was always talking about how I don't like vanilla, and then one day I try a certain brand of vanilla ice cream, and I'm like, I love this brand of ice cream. It's so good. I feel like that's Kyle. I mean, had to be the worst example I could have given, but I feel like Kyle is just so smitten with Brock. He's going to press conferences, talking him up. He went on KMBR and said that it was like one of the best, or not even one. He said it was the best 49ers quarterback he's had, that they had the best connection. Brock Purdy, in his interview earlier this week, said that Kyle comes to him with play calls and asks like, okay, how do you feel about this? And are you comfortable with running these? And they work that out together. I mean, you've never heard of that type of collaboration with Kyle and his quarterbacks. If anything, last year you heard Jimmy saying, your plays suck, man, and everyone had their opinion on how he was utilizing Trey Lance. And Trey Lance even came out in an interview with the Cowboys saying kind of that he was grateful to be with the Cowboys because it was the first time in a long time that he felt like the coach was really paying attention to him and like giving him one-on-one advice, which makes sense when you're the third string quarterback. It's hard to get that. But when I heard those comments from Trey, when you look back at everything that Jimmy has said and the way that Jimmy and Kyle have talked about each other, you can tell that their relationship was extremely contentious. And then you look at the way that Kyle and Brock Purdy talk about each other, and they seem so happy to have found each other. And I have my reservations with Purdy. I enjoy really mobile quarterbacks with strong arms, but I'm like slowly becoming won over by him. Um, he's just he escapes pressure really well. He seems to make pretty good decisions. He does have a lot of turnover worthy plays. But I think a lot of that could be because of how much he was blitzed last week. He's extremely lucky. But this isn't on a do I like Brock Purdy tangent. This is just me saying that Kyle choosing his guy, liking it, them being so smitten together. The locker room seems to have like came around Brock Purdy as their leader, and they look at John Lynch. They look who brung in Hargrave, which I think in hindsight was the best offseason trade. I mean, they've been bringing so much pressure in the middle this year. I think that that's a huge improvement from last year with Kinlaw and Armstead being injured last year. Now having Hargrave and Armstead being healthy, they've been so powerful. That's another reason I just cannot see the Cardinals winning, is because James Conner doesn't have a chance against this. And I mean, that's why. No, I haven't heard Drake Jackson's name in a while, so maybe he'll get some sacks. He was definitely benefiting that first game when he had 2 sacks. I think he was like leading the league in sacks for a second there. It was just because the Niners had like played first, but that was definitely because of all the pressure that Hargrave and Bosa are making with Armstead as well. So I think that all the players, they see that the Niners went all in. They see that, we have CMC to start the year. We're not missing something. We have Hargrave right now. Our defense is 100%. We have a quarterback that we're all behind. Like there's no chaos. There's no like distractions. Like I feel like this is a very focused group on their goal. They want to start out hot, and they're starting out really hot. So I think that is just something that I noticed. I was kind of comparing. I was trying to see like I wondered. Like I wish I was like a media member because I would love to go in and see like is the vibe more like a 2019 vibe? Like does it seem more determined? I think once doubt in Jimmy was like pretty obvious. I think that kind of divided the way it divided fans for sure. And I also think it divided players, and I think it caused some like unsteadiness within the locker room. And I just feel like that doesn't exist this year. And I think that that probably is contributing to how well they're playing. And I wasn't sure if that's just like a fan thing, like do vibes really matter? But I asked Eric Crocker about it, who was in the NFL, and he said that it does matter. And when there's chaos going on, that you hear it. And obviously, you're going to still try to play good because you can go to a different team next year or whatever. You don't want to just suck, but it does affect you. And I think that we can see that it did affect the Niners, and with, not with always starting out slow. And now this year, they seem so unified in their goal to come together and win. And they have so many non-selfish, extremely talented players. You could break all these guys up and they would be the number one guy on any team. So I think it's really cool that the Niners have so many of those guys. But they're paying for him. That's why they need Purdy, because he's so cheap. I'm going to check the comments really quick because I have two of them. Good lighting, doing great. Hard to believe it's your first. Thank you so much, guys. Okay. I always click away from the comments because I'm easily distracted. So I don't want to get too lost in them, but I appreciate the support. Okay. So Hardgrave was great. I definitely think the Niners are going to win. They seem way more unified. I do hope. Oh, this is going to be a side note. I don't think I have a little. Yeah, I don't have a little banner for this, but I do think, as I was saying, I think for wide receivers, that if they held out Debo, that it could be way more of an IU Kittle game, and that even Ray could come in, because once again he did so good at taking over that Debo role when Debo was injured last year. But aside from that, the running backs, I think this is going to be a huge running game. The Cardinals have been terrible at stopping the run, and CMC has scored a touchdown in, I think, all of the last, is it 12 games? It's either 11 or 12 games or something like that. But if he scores a touchdown this game, he's breaking Jerry Rice's record, which is incredible. It's amazing. So I can see, I feel like things like that matter. I feel like Kyle knows that. I feel like the players know that. So I can see Kyle trying to get CMC his touchdown. I do hope that I hope they don't overutilize him. They've been overutilizing him. He's been, I think what they can do is they can throw him the ball more, especially if Debo's out. They can throw him the ball, give him some more targets that way. But I don't think they need to be running him as much against so much less competition. Save that for the Cowboys when you might actually need him. And my original take was to get Mitchell involved more, because Mitchell, when healthy, is a great back. But when healthy is the bane of Mitchell's existence, because he's never healthy. And they said that he got injured and was questionable. So in Thursday's practice, he hurt his knee, is what I heard from David Lombardi. Who, I know people kind of make fun of him because of his spreadsheets, but he does put out some good information, or at least good updates. So what I think that they will do, or should do, if they're not trying to let Elijah rest, and if they're trying to not overwork CMC, which once again, I think Kyle's going to overwork CMC. So this is just my advice to Kyle that he won't take. My advice would get Jordan Mason the ball. I understand that he had some fumbling issues in the offseason. Is that why they're not giving him the ball? He was great. He was the closer last year, right? He was doing great. He worked his way. He was an undrafted free agent, worked his way on the team. He hits super tough. Last year, they would give him the ball at the end of the game when the other team knew the only thing they were going to do was run, and he was getting yards. He was doing great. I think give him more opportunities to kind of get in a rhythm, get him going, get CMC off the field. Knock on wood, I don't think the fumbling issues are going to be that much. They weren't an issue last season. I know they were an issue this offseason. This offseason, Jake Moody couldn't make a kick to save his life, and he's making all of them. So I don't think we can take much from preseason. I feel like we need to give Mason an opportunity. He's on the team for a reason. If you're not going to use him, why is he on the team? He's on the team because you want to use him. Let's rest CMC, because if CMC gets hurt, it's not going to matter if Jordan Mason used to fumble. You're going to have to give him the ball. So, because Elijah Mitchell's going to get injured or be doubtful or whatever eventually. So, in my opinion, they're going to have to give Jordan Mason the ball at some point when one of these guys gets injured. So why not start now and maybe protect CMC from getting injured? Because if he doesn't get injured, is he going to win MVP? I feel like running backs, that's not something that happens. You don't just win MVP very easily. but he's like breaking records. He's doing amazing. It's incredible. And I think I saw something that Arian Foster broke some records under Kyle Shanahan as well. So I feel like Kyle could be emulating that with CMC, his dad with Owen. So I can see that's not his name. His dad did the same thing with his running back in Denver. So I can see them utilizing the heck out of CMC this game. I hope that they give Jordan Mason more. What they should do, let's give CMC the ball targets, not the ball, but let's give CMC targets in the beginning. Let's give him some runs when necessary towards the end. But I think the Niners will be up. And once the Niners get up, one score and a field goal, 2 touchdowns, that's when I think just Mason should be the running back. CMC, I'm sorry. I know you want to be on the field, but you got your 1 touchdown. You broke your record. Go sit down. Let's save you for the Cowboys when we might really need you. I know people watching this also might be like, well, Arizona just beat the Cowboys, but I feel like that was more of a fluke than anything, which maybe is messed up on my part. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving Arizona enough credit. Could be possible. But I feel like I have. I feel like I've made a good case that they're not going to be awful. I don't think we'll just kill them from the beginning. I just don't think they're going to win. And I do think that the Niners will cover the spread. But I think it'll be interesting for a half, you know? So I feel like that's giving them some credit, okay? And I think the Cowboys just had a down week. We lost to the Bears. Whoops, shouldn't swear. We lost to the Bears last year. You know, sometimes good teams lose to bad teams. That just happens. Next, we're going to talk about trade rumors. I get really excited every time I wish you guys knew how to do it. It's so easy, and it took me quite literally like 3 hours to figure out how to just do that little bottom thing. And now I'm so impressed with myself. And I shouldn't be. It should have taken me 10 minutes. I'm just an 80-year-old woman and don't know how to work a computer. So the trade rumors that I saw was Patrick Surtain. His dad was on social media, super unhappy with the position he's in Denver, which I totally agree. They got blown out by the Dolphins, and they've just looked terrible. Speaking of teams just paying quarterbacks that they shouldn't have, I mean, I was all for it. I feel like I'm a sucker. Russell Wilson killed the Niners every year that he could, and every year he's had the opportunity. So I understand why they paid him, but damn, that looks bad in hindsight, doesn't it? They have Sean Payton now. I wonder what they're going to do. They guaranteed Russ a ton of that money. Are they going to get rid of Payton? Or are they just going to draft another quarterback? Interesting. But Patrick Surtain doesn't want any of that bullshit. He wants to be on a team, and he wants to win a Super Bowl. And he's only 23 years old. So if the Niners traded for him, he could be around for a long time. He'd be expensive eventually. And by eventually, I mean pretty soon. I think he's up for a contract in like the same year that Ayuk would be. Maybe not. Maybe a year after that. So the Niners might have to choose between Surtain and Ayuk. And if they traded for Surtain, obviously they would be choosing Surtain. I don't know. Corners are really important. And we have a lot of good skill position players. Imagine Charvarius Ward being the number 2 corner. That could be beautiful. And Surtain, I feel like Surtain would be so good. Now the only thing is, I think you'd have to trade like a first and more for him. And the Niners, that offensive line is so bad. And they're finally getting a number 1. This is going to be their first year with a number 1 since the Trey Lance trade. So I don't think that they'd be willing to give away the first number 1 pick that they've had in years to trade for Surtain. So I don't think that that'll happen, but it could be nice. It could be nice to have him, but I think I would not. You want an offensive lineman. As a fan, we want the flashy players, obviously, but it doesn't matter if you have Surtain if your quarterback is broken. So we need to fix up that offensive line. I don't think that the Niners will trade for him because you got to protect Purdy, or none of this matters. It doesn't matter how many good corners you have if you don't have a quarterback to throw the ball, or if your quarterback is Sam Darnold. No offense, Sam Darnold. Why are you on the team? I'm going to regret that if Purdy ever gets injured and Darnold just comes out and plays good because Kyle. Earlier, I was talking about Nick Mullins and how he's like on that scoreboard with Patrick Mahomes and the records he's broken. And it's just like, no, it's just that Kyle is really good at scheming his quarterbacks up. So I feel like I could eat my words someday if Sam Darnold does come in. I can see Kyle making him look good, but still would rather have Brock Purdy healthy and not have Patrick Surtain than have Patrick Surtain. If there was a way to get him for like the CMC package where you gave away some force and like more down the line or some seconds and then like more down the line, that would be amazing. But Denver would never do like, why would Denver do that? They definitely could get a first and they'll probably get like a first and a second for Surtain if they even let him go. So I definitely don't think that the Niners really have a chance at him. But just ideal, like just the idea of it would be nice. And I heard that rumor, so I just wanted to address it. The other one that I heard was Devontae Adams for a mid-season trade. He obviously wants to win a Super Bowl. He went to the Raiders for Derek Carr, and then they traded Derek Carr away the same year. That's messed up. Man, I don't know why you would put your faith in the Raiders. I kind of feel like that's Devontae Adams' fault. Like, who purposely tries to go to the Raiders and then is surprised when you're getting screwed over and getting hospital balls from Jimmy G? Dang. I wonder if Aiden O'Connor will come. Aiden O'Connell, that's how you say his name, will come in for Jimmy G eventually. And that will make Devontae Adams more happy, maybe, but not really. Because I think Devontae Adams, didn't he not want to stay in, he didn't want to stay in with the Packers when he thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to retire because he didn't want to be with Jordan Love because he was like, I don't have that much more time left. I want to put up big numbers and win a Super Bowl with the rest of my career. And I want to have someone steady for like 10 years. And instead, he went to the Raiders. They traded away Carr, and now he's kind of like stuck in this irrelevant, terrible situation. So I definitely bet he would want to come to the Niners. The Niners have 12 Pro Bowlers at wide receiver. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but they have so many good skill guys. If they could get Devontae Adams, I'm sure they would love him, and Devontae Adams would love that, and everyone would just have to deal with getting even less targets. They definitely wouldn't re-sign Ayuk if they did something like that. But I mean, if they have Devontae Adams, I feel like fans would be okay with them letting Ayuk go. But I just don't think that that's going to happen. Once again, I think both of those trade rumors are a little bit too hopeful. I think they're fun for fans to think about, but just not super realistic in the way that the Niners have gone about organizing their roster. So that's that. Okay, and then I think for the last one, I just had where does Brock Purdy rank? I've heard a lot of people talking about this and ranking Brock Purdy in terms of the other quarterbacks. So if you guys have any opinions, I would love to hear where you guys think he ranks. I think he's probably mid-tier quarterback. I heard someone saying like the way that they would decide how good they think Brock Purdy would be is if a different team traded their quarterback for Brock Purdy right now, would you be excited? And I think that's hard because it definitely you have to take into consideration how much money and stuff he's making if you're considering it like that. But that doesn't really just rank him as a quarterback and his talent. Like when we're talking about Herbert, we're talking about Herbert's talent. We're not talking about the team he's on or the Chargers sucking. We're just talking about them as a player. So I feel like talent level, Brock Purdy is probably in the later teens or even like a little bit, maybe not a little bit lower. I don't know. I've been kind of negative on him and I want to be more positive because his escapability has been so beneficial to see. But he has struggled a lot with his deep ball and having all the arm strength in the world, and then also with some inaccuracy issues, which we don't know if that's because of the elbow or not. But I think that he's been the most efficient quarterback under Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. And so that you have to give him some credit for that. I know that Kyle can scheme up any quarterback, but Brock Purdy has elevated it way past what Kyle normally does. And I think that is super, super clear. I also think there's something about leadership, like the mental aspect that needs to be stated. He knew right away coming off that Dolphins game in that press conference, he said that the first thing he was worried about was kind of like, that's why he was doing like the pounding on his chest and really going out and being over the top. He wanted these older veterans who want to go win a Super Bowl to know that he wasn't scared and that he wasn't going to be the one holding them back. And I feel like that goes to how I said they have a more unified vision this year and they seem more determined. I think Brock Purdy is a huge part of that. I think if your leader is confident, if your leader doesn't seem or seems fearless and doesn't seem scared, and he has the attitude of kind of screw it, I'm gonna show you guys that I'm the best and I'm gonna show you that I can do what you don't think I can do. I think all the other players around him have that same motivation, that same vibe. So I think on the mental side, Brock Purdy has really hit it out of the park. And comparing him to like Jimmy G or something, he's definitely more mobile and can escape pressure and has made some really good wild plays. Even last game, I've criticized his deep ball, but last game his 2 touchdowns were fairly deep and impressive. I do think that the turnover luck is going to have to come down at some point. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how good people think he is. Maybe if he's not getting away with so many not hospital balls. He doesn't throw hospital balls, which is great. But if he doesn't get away with um, all his turnover worthy plays, I wonder if the conversation around him changes. But for right now, I understand why people are so high on him. He is great at evading pressure. He is great in the locker room and how he motivates and cultivates that belief in himself from the other players. And he makes pretty good quick decisions, and Kyle Shanahan believes in him a lot, which has to say something because Kyle Shanahan has not believed in anyone. So if you turn someone who wasn't a believer in his quarterbacks into a believer, I gotta be a little bit impressed with you. So I think for now that is it. I think we went through everything, all the injuries. To recap, I think that Debo will probably push to play because I think he's motivated to kind of redeem himself from that NFC Championship comment, and I think he'll want to play. But I hope that they hold him back a little bit. I think this is a good, if you do any sort of betting, I think this is a good Kittle game. Kittle has scored 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games against the Cardinals. So I put some money on Kittle. If I was the coach, I'd put Ray in for Debo and hold Debo out. But I'm not super confident that they're going to do that. I think they'll definitely beat the Cardinals. If anything, I think it'll be close until halftime because the Cardinals have came out. If I was going to do a record prediction just for fun, just completely off the wall, I'd say something like 31 to like 13 or maybe like 16. Like I could see that seems doesn't that seem like too much? I want to give them credit, but I'm like I just don't see I don't see how they actually I can see them getting like one James Conner touchdown. I can see Josh Dobbs breaking off one run, getting some yards, handing it off to James Conner, them getting one touchdown. But I can't see him getting much more than that. So I think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Niners just have more talent. And this was really fun for my first stream, guys. I'm going to read the comments and then, oh, this guy says 35-17. Yeah, that's kind of similar, like 31. Either I'm saying 31-13 or 31-16. I think that's kind of similar. I like that. Good lighting. Any other comments before I go? This was my first stream, so if you guys have any feedback or anything, let me know. I definitely want to be a little more organized with going through the cards there, but I had a lot of fun and this wasn't that scary or hard. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Thank you so much. And I'll be making more videos to come. Probably after the game, I'll do a short instant reaction. And then on Monday, I'll be on Eric Crocker's show in the morning at 8 in the morning. And I'm sure that there'll be more coming on my stream as well. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much and have a great day. I'm going to turn this off now if I know how. Okay. Bye.